It's mostly just text on the computer, and then when I have demo stuff. Then.
Got it. All right, so welcome everybody to medical training. I'd like to introduce Jen. She's the head of our medical team, and she is going to be explaining everything that we need to know about medical training for the extreme weekend. One of the things I think is really important for everybody to understand, a lot of us have medical experience, either as a type 1 or as a medical professional in some form or fashion. This is not about challenging anybody else's experience. This is more about making sure that we're consistent and we're in synergy in the way that we're dealing with any kind of treatment, any kind of issues. This is going to allow us to work together as a team to be really effective and to make sure that we can provide the safest environment for all the campers that we possibly can. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jen. We're going to switch to the PowerPoint, and Jen, just let me know if you want to do any demonstrations. We'll switch back to
All right. Thank you for your attention tonight, guys. Can you hear me? Is the microphone over there, or is it?
I believe it's right by you.
Okay, cool. My name is Jen. I am a nurse practitioner, and I work at the University of Maryland Diabetes Center, and I also work in private practice with the pediatric endocrinologist, Dr. Reiner. And again, thank you for your attention. And on a personal note, like the first time I volunteered at a diabetes camp was in July of 2006, so 11 years ago now, and basically, was a counselor or, helped out at camp, and it was a life-changing experience for me. It was my calling. I, had done, studied and gotten my pediatric nursing degree, master's, but I didn't actually know what I wanted to do until I volunteered at diabetes camp. So you never know, like, what kind of changes or experiences you'll have. So I am going to cover basically what you need to know to be a good counselor at camp in a few weeks. And it's a learning experience. It's a process. Again, we just need to work as a team so that we can be successful and we can get everything out of it that, that we can. So let's see. We'll start with the counselor experience. Obviously, it's a unique experience. It's been going on now for 8 years, if I do the math right. 2009 was the first experience. So, after you hear the information, read the information, digest the information, but always know that there's a good mix of veterans and newbies in our group. So you can always build on their experiences and ask questions. So it's one happy team. So the campers who will be there will have diabetes. So we're going to go over the environment, and then we'll go over some of the medical stuff that you need to know. But basically, campers, counselors, medical staff are all there so that everyone can have an opportunity to network and learn how to be healthier. So there's physicians, nutritionists, nurse practitioners, nurses, educators from across the state and even in Delaware and Virginia. So we're coming from the Mid-Atlantic region. And there's some campers who will be there for the first time, and then there's ones who've been there for the last 9 years or
We actually
8 years.
have Jared is on the phone. He's been a camper for a number of years and is now going to help us out as a counselor. So.
Yeah, it's always great to see, kids mature and move and take from their experience. So it'll be a 44-hour weekend. Friday, 2 p.m. is when we ask volunteers to arrive or as close to that as they can to help with setup. And then the campers start arriving around 4 p.m. Some of them show up a little bit early, and we just try to go with that. And then they check out on Sunday morning around 11:30. So it's a 44-hour weekend overnight. And, depending on your comfort level, first time, veteran, you can make this experience amazing. You can make this experience, not as, well, you never know what to expect. But basically our biggest goal is for the counselors to be good role models the entire time that they're there, because kids pick up on everything, little things, big things. So, what would you do as a responsible adult, a good person? Just make sure you're kind of showcasing that. And then eventually, if you want to come back and join us year after year, then you can become, a counselor or a leader. So today we're going to talk about type 1 diabetes, talk a little bit about nutrition, talk about blood sugar monitoring, looking for signs and symptoms of problems like low blood sugar, high blood sugar, trying to prevent complications. We can't prevent everything from happening, good or bad, but we can kind of plan ahead so we know how to deal with it. And then talking about some of the coping skills, and I guess we'll talk about the emotions some of the campers go through based on the experience of whether they've been here before or if they're new. And then we'll talk about some of the treatments that you'll see with diabetes. So again, the top priority obviously is safety of the kids. We have 63 campers, 62 campers, something like that, coming, ages 8 to 17, and then we have some counselors who are just turned 18 and were campers before. So there are some things that unfortunately can happen at camp, even though it's in that short period of time. In the past, we've had a couple not serious injuries, but we've had just the general stuff like fractures, and the couple years that I wasn't there, I don't remember if there was any hospitalizations or ER visits, but the one I can recall from about 5 years ago was just a finger fracture, because it is an adventure camp, so that can happen.
That's the only one we ever had to took any.
Okay, so our record is pretty clean. So we've only had 2 ER visits then. There was a finger fracture, and then one year there was someone who had an asthma attack and pneumonia. But other than that, with it being an adventure camp, that's pretty good. Abduction is on here, I guess. Again, they're minors, 8 to 17 years old, and if they wander off, then we don't really want them to wander off, but we want to prevent that. So if you are a counselor, you should be always keeping your eye out for any wanderers or people trying to escape, but that usually isn't the case. And then bullying is always a concern with especially group activities. You have a variety of kids from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of ages, a variety of maturity levels. So that's always an issue. So you want to kind of nip that in the bud if you see warning signs of that going that way. And then the health issues, which we will talk about. So again, to make sure it's as safe as possible, you have to have a plan. And you're not alone. There's obviously 60-some volunteers that are probably, that are all on the same team. We want to prepare for anything and not be caught by surprise. Anticipate like what, could happen, best case scenario, worst case scenario type of thing. And then this, the statement in here about never be alone or one-on-one with a camper athlete comes from a, what's the word? It's kind of a rule that it's a safety issue. You don't want to be in private one-on-one with a camper, because the parents and the families are entrusting you with their kids' care, and you don't want to be in a situation where it's kind of a he said, she said thing. Is there a better way that I can explain this, John?
Yeah, a couple things. I think that you want to make sure that you, again, trying to take care of the kids. The more people that we have around each camper, the better. Second, we don't ever want to have anything being misinterpreted as any kind of behavior that might be threatening to a child. And everyone's perceptions are different. By having more than one person there, or more than one counselor or staff volunteer, we can make sure that we have multiple perspectives that can accurately describe any situation that happens. And this protects both the kids and the volunteers as well. It's an unpleasant thought to think about, but by preparing, we can make sure that it's something we don't have to deal with.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, yeah.
Excuse me, Jen.
Yeah,
This is Bill. Can I make a quick comment?
absolutely.
If someone is typing on their computer and they're not muted, could you kindly mute your device so that it's not being picked up by audio? Thank you.
Was that it, Bill?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that.
That's
That's
okay.
it.
So yeah, I guess the biggest word is misinterpretation. You don't want to, number one, the more people that are there to help, the better. So you don't really want to be in a one-on-one situation and like there's an emergency. It's better if there's more people, and public is always better. A public forum is always better than private where it could get misinterpreted. And that's just one of the things that we need to keep in mind because we are volunteering at a camp with minors. And I guess we'll have more about the schedule at the next meeting where we can kind of show you what areas of camp we'll mostly be in, and then there are going to be times when we'll be separated. So some of the campers will be, you know, down by the bay, some will be up at the ropes course. So there's going to be times where it's a little bit more vulnerable, where I think we have enough volunteers numbers, but of course, you're going to be a little bit more separated from the group at those points in time, and that's mostly on Saturday.
I think the really important point here is that communicate at all times, and the counselors are going to have two-way radios so they can communicate with the entire team. And better to communicate more than less. So just keep that in mind and reach out to anybody whenever there's a question or a challenge. Don't wait. Don't feel like you can always solve it yourself. That's what we're all here for.
Great.
Jen, but we
Yeah.
always have nursing staff, like at the ropes course and, you know, at the swimming pool if it's open. So there'll
Yeah.
always be nursing staff around,
Yes.
very close.
Yes. And I will try to talk about the structure of the volunteers and scheduling and stuff at the end. But yeah, you never really will be alone per se, at least during the activities, because we have enough coverage for skilled medical staff. So again, could there be serious illness at a 3-day camp? Possibly. Trauma, because it's an adventure camp. Infection is always a risk because you're outdoors. And then some of the more serious things, which, you know, would just need your eyes and ears for anything that's going wrong or you feel that's off with the camper. And then there's always the risk of allergies like insect bites, bee stings, and then I added, you know, food allergies. But we're planning for all that stuff because I have medical forms that have everybody's health, all the campers' health history, that known health history. So we'll try to decrease the amount of problems, obviously, that can occur. And then we'll talk a little bit in a little while about hypoglycemia, which is a term for very low blood sugar, and then hyperglycemia, which is a term for high blood sugar, and what to do to help a camper with those scenarios. So as a counselor, we ask you, again, to be the eyes and ears for the med staff and for the families. So if you notice any changes with the camper, their behavior, or anything medical, you have to communicate. We would want you to communicate that with other members of your team. And remember, it can be a stressful environment for kids, especially if they're new, they don't know what to expect. It's their first time away from home, their first time away at a sleepaway camp. We do run into these things from time to time, like homesickness, and they start acting, you know, withdrawn, or they're angry, or they're sad. So don't feel like you're to be the only one that has to, you know, help this camper. There are other people on the team. And Stomach ache, nausea, and vomiting is really, those are big signs of problems with kids with diabetes, especially high blood sugars and low blood sugars. So we would want the campers to report, and you, as the counselors, to report any of that, of those symptoms to us. And then, of course, regular like breathing problems or allergies, with it being springtime outdoors. So kids, again, we run into this. They might feel stressed out because they are in an unfamiliar environment, especially if they're new to camp. They might be getting a lot more activity at camp than they usually do when they're at home. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. We always encourage them, obviously, to do the best that they can with the activity that they're in. We encourage them, to try different food if they're kind of picky eaters. And we have the menu. It's not completely picked out yet, but in general, the food at camp is generally good, right, guys? Then again, the sleeping arrangements, they're in cabins and they're bunk beds, and they're pretty good accommodations, but it might be different for people who haven't really been there before. Some people are shyer than others, so they might be a little bit nervous meeting other new people, and them being used to their family or them being used to their kind of close circle, it could be a little bit of an adjustment. And it's not a very long time for them to be able to adjust, so just kind of try to help them with that and continue to encourage and support them. And then, one of the main pulls for North Bay is that they have amazing, awesome, extremely cool, challenging activities, which most people enjoy, but there is always, that factor of a little bit of anxiety and fear. So again, just encouraging them to try new things if they're up for it. And then this is pretty important, even though it seems like, common sense to adults, but we want to make sure that they are eating at meals rather than, in between meals, like skipping meals and then being hungry in between meals. So we don't really have much time or opportunity to feed them, when, like at will, like it's not an open pantry. So there's going to be dinner served on Friday, breakfast, lunch, dinner served on Saturday, bedtime snack, and then Sunday breakfast. So we really don't have the ability in the schedule to kind of have them skip breakfast, but then like beg for food halfway before, or like a few hours before lunch. So encourage them in the dining hall to eat, a good, well-balanced meal. And also to sleep. A lot of kids, when they are away from home, they figure, I'm just going to stay up the entire night and hang out with my friends. But then it really will kick them the next day, like when when the activities are happening. So encourage them not to, lights out at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, depending on the age group, so that they get a full night's sleep so they will be able to fully participate in the activities the next day. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit harder for the older kids. Saturday night is, I guess, sometimes a little bit easier because they're super tired from the activities. And then just general hygiene. I mean, put brush teeth frequently in here, so you might have to remind, depending on the age, some of these kids that, stuff that's common sense, healthy habits, you should continue to encourage them even if they're away from home. And if you are at all concerned about anything, your medical team counselor, medical team staff member is like a walkie-talk call or a phone call or a text message away. So they're always, we are assigned different different camper groups. So we can hopefully nip stuff in the bud before it gets serious. And then set a good example at all times, because again, the kids are constantly watching, constantly absorbing their surroundings. And we want to make it fun for everyone. Fun for the kids, fun for the counselors, fun for the volunteers, because it's a limited amount of time, and for right now it's happening once a year. We want to get the most out of it, of the experience. Let's see. So some of the stuff we talked about earlier: share the burden. You're not the only one that's going to be there. Be a positive role model. And if you're not feeling well, or if you really just need a break, we can always arrange that. We just need to know about it so we can make sure there's enough coverage at each area and at each counselor, with each cabin group. So a little moment on this rule. Cell phones are, I mean, everyone has them, everyone uses them all the time now, but we have a rule that campers should not be carrying phones and using phones unless it's a medical device. So there is something called a continuous glucose monitor, which some of the campers may be using their phone for that purpose, but really that's the only reason why they should have a phone or be using a phone. So that's kind of a strict rule that we have to, again, decrease any distractions. And I can grab Jason's and show you what I'm talking about and pass it. So this is an iPhone, and it is right now on the screen is an app, and it's a continuous glucose monitor. So Jason is wearing a sensor on his body, and he can get an idea of what his glucose, his sugar levels are by looking at his phone. So I haven't looked at the list of people. I don't know how many of the campers will be using this technology, but some of them will. So that would be the only exception of why they would be able to have a mobile phone with them. Okay.
And
Thank you.
for the most part,
Talking with a lot of parents about that, and I mentioned to the parents that, you know, the only time they're supposed to use the phone is for the CGM. So, you know, we'll do our best to communicate with the parents to make sure that the child understands that, you know, they can't be making phone calls and so forth.
right, and the main point is to get them to engage with all the other campers and take advantage of all the things that are available to them over the weekend. And if they're locked into just staring at their phone, playing games or texting, they're really going to miss out on a great experience.
Yeah, and it takes away from, I guess, the group experience, because if one person's on it, then that's not fair to another person. So if you catch them on social media, or if you catch them on doing whatever besides looking at their, and I guess we'll give you a list of the campers that are allowed to have phones for CGM. And then if they're not on that list, then you feel free to unplug them from their phone for the weekend.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Sure.
I'm Jen King. I just wanted to let you know who I was talking. So what about, like, when it's downtime in the cabins or before bed, are they allowed to get out their phones and maybe, like, be on them for a couple minutes or so before they go to bed or something like that?
We, you know, again, it's kind of like being a positive role model and encouraging you to have good habits. I think that's the tone that I would take when you're faced with a situation like that, and just encourage them to shut it off for a while and make the most out of the friends that are around them. You know, it's going to be pointless to try to butt heads with them on it and argue with them. That's just not going to get anywhere. I think we just want to motivate them and make sure that there's enough activities that they are engaged in. And it might be symptomatic of them not feeling comfortable engaging for some other reason, so it might be an opportunity to just kind of ask a few questions and see how they're feeling about everything going on for the weekend. And if it gets a big challenge, you can always call you call over the radio and we'll come and help talk to the kid and just try to be understanding. This is not a police state where we're trying to, you know, make everybody miserable by enforcing the rule to the, you know, over the limit. We just want to have everybody engage in all the things that are available to them.
I'm going
Thank you.
and a really good way to, I think, go about that possibly is saying, you're only here 44 hours. Let's let the phone rest for 44 hours and communicate with everyone in your cabin and around. You know, give it a break.
Yeah, I think I agree.
44 hours.
Unplugging for 44 hours, you know, it can be rejuvenating. It can, I think if you open the door to like, okay, let's limit your cell phone time, I just think it ends up creating more problems. If we just take the stance of no cell phones unless it's CGM, then that kind of, you know, puts the kibosh on that.
Right.
You don't want them on the screens right before bed anyway. It just messes them up.
Absolutely.
Much as I hate to admit that.
And so that also goes for counselors. I mean, it'd be really hard if we said to campers, you're not allowed to have phones, but then the counselor is like constantly on their phone. So try to do it, you know, in a discreet way. If you have to use your phone, don't do it in front of the group. Just be discreet about it and like challenge yourself. Like, you know, I am an addict of my phone, but when I step away from it for a while, it really does feel good to just take a break and unplug. So we try not to create a situation where the campers feel, you know, annoyed that they can't use their phones, but yet the counselor is obviously using it right in front of them.
Hey, Jen, while we're talking about phones, so if a child asks you to call their parents, do not do that. You know, do not call the parents. Bring it up to a senior staff, admin, or a nurse, and, you know, we'll take care of the situation from there.
You're talking about like homesickness and stuff where they...
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that issue before, and I think it does make it worse if it makes the homesickness even more if they do contact their parents.
Right.
So yeah, we kind of, I think we should continue with that strategy.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, we don't even call the parents unless they're sick.
Right. So we call parents when there's an emergency and you know, need to know information. And there is actually, if someone is using a continuous glucose monitor on their phone as the receiver, like the parents may have access to that information too. So there are some parents that like kind of just like to track what's going on with their kid because they have that ability to have remote access to their blood sugars. Well, I mean, we encourage parents, like, this is your weekend where you can take a break. Like, you've been, you know, raising your child with this condition for years, and this is your opportunity to kind of let go and take a diabetes break for a little while. So we hope that most of the parents kind of take us up on that opportunity.
Yep, and the point of contacts for the parents are going to be myself, Bill, and Ron, and we'll field those questions if they pop up, and we'll do our best to manage it. So I know we got a lot to cover, so we'll keep jumping along. If you guys think of any questions or anyone has any questions after this session, feel free to email me, and we will work through getting you all the questions answered that we possibly can, and I think a lot will make sense in the first couple hours that you're at camp. Everything will start to come together, but we're here for you with any questions that you guys have as volunteers.
So the next topic is about the walkie-talkies. So we will have walkie-talkies, and most of the counselors and volunteers will have walkie-talkie, or at least someone on your team will have a walkie-talkie, and that's the main way that we communicate at camp. So we will get you a walkie-talkie, and the most important thing to know about communication is speak slowly and clearly, make sure you're on the right channel, and, you know, announce who you want to talk to, who you are, who you want to talk to, and then go from there. So we try to limit, like, non-essential communication over walkie-talkies, but, you know, if I'm all the way up at the ropes course and you're all the way down at the pool, you can access me that way. And I mean, I believe that med staff will have, most of us have phones too, so it's kind of evolved in the last few years because the reception at North Bay is pretty good, but walkie-talkie is kind of an easy way to get a hold of us if you need us and we're not there, and there's not other medical staff that can kind of face-to-face talk you through things. And then you can always announce on the main channel who you are, who you want to talk to, and then if you want to have a private conversation, then you can say, let's switch to channel number 5, and then you can have a private conversation so the whole camp doesn't hear all the details. Because we want, I mean, it is private health information too, so you want to keep that in mind so we're not making anyone vulnerable to the information.
So the main channel is 1.
Usually, yeah. And then you can agree to switch to a different channel if you want to have a more private conversation. So this is the one with the link. I don't know if you think it'll work. So a little bit more about type 1 diabetes. You have control of that. So there's a quick video that kind of gives you a demonstration of what's going on with diabetes. But so everyone, all the campers at camp and a lot of the volunteers at camp have type 1 diabetes. Is it showing yet? Did not go.
Type 1 diabetes is a condition in which the pancreas produces or no insulin. Insulin is a hormone that helps your body use blood sugar, known as glucose. Type 1 diabetes is a condition in which the pancreas produces little or no fat, protein, insulin, and carbohydrates for energy. While your body is digesting the food, the carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. The glucose is then absorbed into the bloodstream, where it is carried to cells throughout your body.
No, that's the one that's going. Okay.
Just restart.
Start over.
Type 1 diabetes is a condition in which the pancreas produces little or no insulin. Insulin is a hormone that helps your body use blood sugar, not glucose, for energy. Your body takes the food you eat and breaks down fat, protein, and carbohydrates for energy. While your body is digesting the food, the carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. The glucose is then absorbed into the bloodstream, where it is carried to cells throughout your body. Insulin helps your cells absorb the glucose in your blood, allowing it to be used as energy. A healthy pancreas releases a regular supply of insulin into your bloodstream. After that, your blood glucose levels rise, and your pancreas responds by releasing more insulin to move the glucose into your cells. Insulin acts as a key, opening up the cell so it can accept the glucose. In a person with type 1 diabetes, the pancreas produces little or no insulin. Without insulin, blood glucose levels rise. Without insulin, glucose cannot enter the cells and be used for energy. As a result, it remains in the bloodstream. As a person with type 1 diabetes, it is important to monitor and maintain healthy blood glucose levels. High blood glucose levels over a long period of time can lead to health complications. If your blood glucose level drops too low, even for a short amount of time, you may feel dizzy or too hot or cold. If your blood glucose level drops extremely low, you may lose consciousness. By taking insulin as prescribed by your doctor and maintaining a healthy diet, you can keep your blood levels within a healthy range.
Okay, great. So that was just an overview of type 1 diabetes, and basically if you have type 1 diabetes, you do not produce insulin, and the only way to really get insulin into your body, which is by insulin injection or by insulin pump. And that is the job of the medical staff to figure out or help the children figure out how much insulin is needed based on their activity level and on what they eat and what their providers have prescribed for them. So counselors aren't responsible for giving insulin. That is the job of the med staff. But any information that you have about the kids' activity level, about what they ate, will help us in dosing the correct amount of insulin. The next video talks about some of the side effects from getting too much insulin or not enough insulin.
Introducing the Contour Next 1 Meter and Contour Diabetes app, a new age of smart diabetes management that lets you capture your blood glucose readings.
Sorry, it's just an ad.
Conveniently and securely. The Contour Next 1 Meter and Contour Diabetes app.
There are some real key symptoms of low blood sugar. One of them is feeling weak, shaky, fast heart rate, faint. The person feels like they don't have enough energy, but they also feel panicky because the low blood sugar causes a rise in the hormone adrenaline. What adrenaline does is it forces the liver to put sugar back in the bloodstream. So the body's trying to rectify the problem by signaling this emergency reaction, and that's what it feels like. It feels like an emergency. You feel compelled to get something to eat very quickly, and generally, quickly absorbed carbohydrate or sugar is the way to treat low blood sugar. We always tell people to keep with them some kind of quickly absorbed sugar. One can purchase glucose tablets at the drugstore. 3 of them will usually treat a mild low. Juices will bring the blood sugar up. Even regular soft drinks are effective at doing that. Or hard candies, just keeping hard candies with you. And whenever you get that feeling, to take them, and that will usually bring it up. Generally, though, we recommend that you follow that with eating some regular food so that the sugar doesn't drop again very quickly. Low blood sugar is usually a blood sugar that is under 70. Now, some people who have diabetes have gotten so used to high blood sugars, their blood sugars may normally be in the 200s, that when they're at 120, they feel low. Their body actually gives all the symptoms of a low blood sugar. And we generally recommend that even though they are in a normal range, they should probably treat it anyways with just a little bit of carbohydrate to take the edge off, because otherwise, you know, that low blood sugar makes you feel very stressed out.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about treating low blood sugars. There is a handout about what to do and I think I have enough copies for everyone here, and then I want John to send it out along with this presentation. But a couple words about what you're going to be carrying. So if someone has type 1 diabetes, they don't produce insulin, they need insulin, and they'll be getting that insulin by the medical staff at mealtime. And in between meals, if they have too much insulin in their blood, then the treatment for what could happen if they have too much insulin in their blood is they could have a low blood sugar. And like she was describing, some of the symptoms are shaky, sweaty, anxious, hungry, because the body knows that something's wrong, the brain knows that something's wrong. So counselors will be carrying bags with them of supplies so that if a camper needs treatment for low blood sugar, then they have that with them. So one of the things in the bag that you will be carrying around is glucose tablets, and also probably juice boxes. So this is our treatment for low blood sugars, and we'll go over the guidelines for how many glucose tabs to eat and all that to give them. But this is generally what the campers are used to. Glucose tablets. We possibly will have some glucose gel. But the main thing when you're on the go is glucose tablets or candy. We might get fruit snacks or candy that is portable, so something fast. Also in your pack is going to be a testing kit. So we know if a camper feels that they are having low blood sugar symptoms, then you are going to have the materials or the supplies ready for them to be able to test their blood sugar at an activity, before an activity, during an activity, that type of thing. So there is a video on how to use this meter, but you'll be carrying this. You'll be carrying everything that they need to be able to check the blood sugar, and then also if they have low blood sugars. We can switch to the slides. So we will have backpacks, but you could also bring your own if you felt like you wanted to carry your own bag at camp. But each of them, again, will have a glucose meter with test strips and alcohol wipes, and then lancet devices, or lancets, they're needles to prick to prick the finger for a small drop of blood, a sharps container, or a bag, a biohazard bag, so you can put any blood-soiled things into that bag so we can dispose of them safely. Low blood sugar treatment carbohydrates, like I said, the glucose tablets, glucose gel, juice, fruit snacks, something, so that if you're out for a hike or you're out at the ropes course and they need treatment for low blood sugar, you'll have that with them. I'll go over the logs. That there's some paperwork that we want counselors to fill in, and that helps the medical staff keep track of what the blood sugar patterns are in between meals. Flashlight, radio, and then something to write with, and then again the snacks and juice. So when you're doing a blood sugar check, most of the kids, especially our campers are 8 to 17, so most of the kids know how to check their own blood sugar. I think in fact all of them do. They all check that off as yes, they can check their own blood sugar when they did the registration. But we just need to provide the supplies for them to be able to check their blood sugar. So the Lancet is the device on the upper right of the slide, and then once it's used, then it gets placed into a plastic container, and then everything will get disposed of the way it's supposed to. So there'll be more information at camp about where to bring the used supplies. And then there's the One Touch Ultra Mini video. So this year we're using the One Touch Ultra Mini glucometer, and there is a video, of how to use it. Can you fast forward to like minute 7? Because it's all intro stuff. That's good.
I'll show you how to test using a fingertip blood sample. First, check the code number printed on the test strip vial. Then remove a fresh test strip. Hold the meter as shown here. Be sure the 3 contact bars are facing you and insert the test strip into the test port. The meter turns on automatically. After the startup test screen appears, a code number will appear on the display. Press the up or down button until the number on the display matches the code number on the test strip vial. This code number will appear on the display each time you insert a test strip. Remember to check the code when you switch to a different vial of test strips. It is very important to make sure the codes match each time you test. This is essential to obtain an accurate result. Now, wait for the flashing blood drop icon to appear on the display. tells you that it's time to apply your blood sample to the test strip. To get a blood sample, hold the one-touch lancing device firmly against the side of your finger. Press the release button. Carefully remove the lancing device. Next, gently squeeze or massage your fingertip until a round drop of blood forms. Make sure your sample is of at least 1 microliter before you apply it to the test strip. Refer to your owner's booklet for a picture of the correct sample size. Touch and hold the drop of blood to the narrow channel in the top edge of the test strip. Keep holding the drop of blood to the top edge until the confirmation window is full. When the meter detects blood in the test strip, it will count down from 5 to 1. After the countdown, your test result appears on the display along with the unit of measure and date and time of the test. The result is automatically stored in the meter memory. After your test, simply remove the test strip and the meter will turn off automatically. Be sure to dispose of the test strip properly. And that's all there is to testing with the One Touch Ultra Mini Meter. Pretty simple, isn't it?
Okay, so there's a couple notes I want to add, or tips I want to add to that video. Number one, all the strips will be coded 25. That they don't really make any other strips of different codes anymore because it's kind of an old video. But so you don't really have to worry about the coding. It'll always be code 25. Number two, you always want the camper to pull the strip out because there is blood on that strip. So to decrease your chance of contamination, you always have the camper prick their own finger, apply the blood, and then when the reading is resulted, when you have a blood sugar result done, then you have them pull out the test strip themselves and dispose of it in the sharps or the plastic biohazard bag. Okay, so you really shouldn't ever be pulling it out. If you have to pull it out, then you should put a glove on and pull it out for them. And I did not bring any Lancet devices. I forgot to bring the Lancets, but we'll show you how to use the Lancets at camp. So they're pretty simple, one-time use Lancets that you'll prick your finger with. And you always want to make sure that there is enough space. So you don't want, all the campers within like 2 feet of you doing blood sugar tests, because that's another way that you can have cross-contamination. My example is a few years ago I had 2 campers at the ropes course, and they both pricked their fingers and they were waiting for the test strips, and I think one of the droplets of blood from one of the campers' fingers got in the other person's eye because they were standing close to each other. So again, try to make it a little bit orderly when you're doing the testing, and make sure that everyone gives you space.
Really bad.
Yeah, it ended up being okay, but because there's no communicable diseases or anything. But that's just something we learned from. You need some space when you're doing the blood sugar test because there is body fluids going around. So if a blood sugar is below, well, I'll skip this for now, but there is a chart that I emailed you, a document that looks like this. Yeah, it should be on the flash drive. We'll go back. We can go back. So there's going to be in each counselor folder a few pieces of paper, one of which will be this, but we're going to circulate this ahead of time so that you can kind of look at it and understand it and ask questions before camp starts. But our goal is for campers to have blood sugars somewhere between 120 and 160, which might be a little bit higher target than some of the campers are used to, but this is a high adventure camp, and where the campers are new to us and their reactions to insulin and activity we need to prepare for. So again, for younger campers, the target blood sugar is between 120 and 160, and for the older campers, we can go a little bit lower, 100 to 140. So So we try our best to dose the insulin so that their blood sugars are in that range. But stuff happens, and if they have a low blood sugar, then the treatment for that is extra fast-acting carbohydrates. So if we look at the chart, the column on the left, if the blood sugar is less than 50, 49 or under, we start off with giving them 30 grams of fast-acting carbs and having them retest their blood sugar in 15 minutes, and they should be resting and not doing anything, not, so you're going to have the camper stop all activity, sit and relax and recover. And you're going to be writing down the blood sugars so the med staff is aware of what's going on. If the blood sugar is 50 to 100, you can give them 15 grams of fast-acting carb, recheck in 15 minutes, and then once their blood sugar is above 100, then you can have them continue with the activity. If the next meal is going to be over 30 minutes away, no, I'm sorry, if their blood sugar is up after 15 minutes, then you're going to give them a snack, which again we'll provide to you. So the 15-gram fast-acting carb is usually 3 or 4 glucose tablets or a package of fruit snacks. So again, when at camp, we'll show you what to use for fast-acting treatment. If their blood sugar is 100 to 101, 120, it's a 15-gram snack if the next meal is going to be over 30 minutes away. And the blood sugar, if it's 120 to 160, it's 15 grams snack if it's going to be over an hour to the next meal. And if it's over 160, they're fine. And then if the camper is older, over 10, then this treatment's pretty similar, but we might not have to give them as many carbs to boost them up. So I'm not going to read this word for word anymore, but you can look at it to see what we would do. We would want the counselors to do, help us do, and what the med staff will be doing.
Back to the PowerPoint.
Glucagon is another treatment if the blood sugar is extremely low and they cannot eat or drink fast-acting carb. And the med staff is going to be the ones that are going to be administering the glucagon, but it's just something that you can be aware of. It's an emergency kit that each med staff will carry, and if there is a situation where someone needs glucagon, hopefully not, no one's ever needed it at camp, but if, and knock on wood, but if they do need it, you just, we would ask the counselors to just crowd control, give the medical staff team to space to work so we can get the camper safely what they need. And then we'll probably have a little bit of a I don't know, a meeting afterwards, because it can get stressful, and other campers can get anxious when that happens, because it always is a risk to have a low blood sugar and need glucagon. Continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps are pieces of technology that help campers and people with type 1 diabetes manage their diabetes. The continuous glucose monitors, like I showed you earlier, they could be on a smartphone, or they could have a receiver that tells them, it gives you an idea of where their glucose level is. So it gives you the direction and speed of a glucose level. When we're checking a blood sugar with a finger stick with a meter, we just get one value. But when they're wearing a continuous glucose monitor, we get a value plus whether they're going up, their blood sugar is going up, or it's going down, or it's not changing. So it's very helpful for the kids who are using continuous glucose monitors. And then I think 3/4 of our campers are using insulin pumps, which what I want to say about that is we really can't have the campers dosing insulin outside of mealtime. So basically the medical staff are the ones that are trained and need to record how much insulin is given at what time it's given. So we do have this talk with all the campers at check-in that they are under no circumstances allowed to just dose themselves insulin. And it makes it hard to track because they have insulin pumps and they have access to the insulin, but we want to make it as safe as possible for them. So if you see them manipulating their pumps, then try to address that or let med staff know right away. I think there were just a couple more pieces of paper that I wanted to show. Did I send anything else to you besides this? No. Oh, yeah. Let's stop there for a second. So this is a similar chart, except for this one it talks about what to do if the blood sugar is low right before the meal. So if it's low right before the meal, like if it's 80 to 100, so at that point you can give them, just make sure that they start eating the meal immediately. If they can't get access to the food immediately, then give them a 10-gram snack. If their blood sugar is less than 79, 50 to 79, then you can give them a 15-gram snack, and they can't eat until their blood sugar is above 80. If their blood sugar is less than 50, if it's 49 or less, and you're going to give them a 30-gram fast-acting carb snack, and they have to wait 15 minutes before they can eat. So it gets a little tricky because kids want to eat as soon as they can if their blood sugar is low. But this is kind of our strategy for decreasing the chance of having super lows. We want to treat the blood sugar quickly first before having them go ahead and eat a full meal. And then below this document, this is the template for the counselor log. So we need to be able to know what the blood sugars are for all the campers before each meal and then during activities. So each row represents one camper's day. So the first row is their name, and then what their blood sugar was before breakfast, mid-morning if they needed a check then, before lunch, in the afternoon, at dinner, in the evening, at bedtime, in the middle of the night. So we ask the counselors to be responsible for writing down the blood sugars, especially if the med staff isn't there at the time. Yeah, that's it. And I think the only other piece, I'm going to show one more piece of paper and you can just do it on video. And then there's going to be another paper that's going to be at different stations when we have the Extreme Adventure Challenge and when we have the adventure activities on Saturday. There will be med staff. Is it upside down?
On the screen.
Awesome.
Well, you can't.
Because I'm looking at it here and it looks fine. Is that right?
No, it's upside down.
Yes.
That's weird.
It's upside down.
Okay, anyway, it's going to look kind of like this, but just turn it upside down and backwards. So it's basically another piece of paper that you might have to document blood sugars on so that the med staff can, can know what the blood sugar was during the activity and what was used to treat the blood sugar if it was low. And the final word is about high blood sugar. Again, med staff is responsible for dosing insulin, but we do sometimes need information where if the blood sugar is high, we want to know whether they have ketones. And the way that campers or people check for ketones is they urinate on a ketone strip like this, and then if it changes color, then we know whether they have ketones or not. So that helps us, again, decide whether they need more insulin or if they just need to hydrate. So I think that that's all I wanted to cover today.
All right. Well, great.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for logging on today, and I just want to emphasize the importance of paying attention to this. We are going to send this, get this video up online. So I'm going to jump on the camera here for a second. We're going to get this up online. We're going to get this sent out to all the volunteers. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to attend, tell them to keep an eye on their email, and we'll get a link out. It might take a day or so to get that around. But thank you very much for everybody for taking the time to attend this. There will be probably a very frequent number of emails coming out leading up to the camp. We're in the last couple weeks, and things are moving fast and furious as we approach the camp. So everybody, again, I guess the last thing is thank you very much. Well, one last reminder, if you have any questions, please email us, and we'll get answers back to you and give you as much information as we can. So, thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.